Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack.
Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
With the craziness of Chicago behind us, the dominance of SVG behind us, Brian, fresh back from Chicago.
Yep.
We're in to talk all that was Chicago, as well as get you set for this week in Sonoma. As a friendly reminder, Brian and I will be boots on the ground. So if you are going to be in Sonoma and you're going to be at the race, definitely holler at your boys. We'd love to say hello. Love to shake some hands, kiss some babies, do all the things. Brian Twining, how was it to go to a Chicago race that wasn't impacted by rain?
Yeah, it was kind of amazing to see that the rain held off until the literal last second of the event. And it definitely played a role into whether or not NASCAR threw the caution when they should have, when friggin' Cody Ware, poor guy, goes head first into the wall at almost 100 miles an hour, clearly had no brakes into it. And yet NASCAR waits almost 40 seconds because they said they couldn't see this. I won't go too much into this, but the fact that every single person who has seen the video or even who was there is questioning the call there just goes to show you that that was the wrong call.
Yep. Listen to today's Actions Detrimental. They covered it pretty good. Pretty interesting the way. If that was, I don't know, Chase Elliott, would be different.
Well, they made a good point on that, though, is that if that was Chase Elliott, people are probably watching him much more closely than Cody Ware, who's running in the mid-pack. So I understand that part of it, but...
Well, it sounds like they had like one person watching multiple screens like me and you on a Sunday. And do we see lots of things? Sure. Do we see everything? Absolutely not.
Pretty close. However... Okay, so I said I wouldn't get into this, but the last thing I'm going to say,
we are getting into it. Make sure you click the like button. Make sure you click subscribe, and sit back and enjoy Brian's rant of the week.
So when NASCAR's official, whoever they talked to about this, tried to use Kyle Larson going into the wall last year as an example, before I even went back to look it up, it popped in my head. I was like, didn't they call a caution immediately on that? And he wasn't able to get out from underneath the tire pack. And I went back and watched it. And sure enough, within a half a second of him slamming the wall, the yellow came out and he didn't get on his radio. And he tried to back out from underneath these things and he couldn't. Yeah. And so to use that as the reason why they gave it some time and they thought he was going to be able to get back out is just, they're literally digging their own grave with these statements when they should have just came out and said, we made a mistake.
Or say, we were worried about the race.
Exactly.
We thought Cody was fine and in a spot where we could get to him quickly. And we wanted to get the race in. So we didn't throw the caution. Made sure SVG got to the green-white checkered in order to keep going.
Yeah, I think that we just want consistency and transparency because, like, anybody who has eyeballs saw that and knew that's a caution. It doesn't matter what time of the race, how many laps are left. Like, dude went like no brakes. No brakes.
Yeah. But on the bright side, we didn't have rain. And I would say Chicago, much like Mexico City, despite having a clear kind of SVG dominance, was a fun race, was passing. Denny talked about all the passing today on his pod.
It was more so passing throughout the field, though. I mean, again, it was...
That was very... But that's similar to what we saw in Mexico, right? Where no one was... I mean...
Nobody was passing for the lead.
Yeah, Ty Gibbs was not as close this week as he was there. Obviously, in Mexico, he got trapped down because of the caution. But I don't know. I thought it was a fun race. Thought it was an interesting race. I thought people sort of had chances, but not really. McDowell being as good as
Yeah.
McDowell was early was really impressive, and both of us were kicking ourselves. And then McDrivered himself right out of the picture and reminded
I
us.
think okay, so I'm actually glad you brought that up because I found that to be probably one of the bigger storylines that people really aren't talking about right now is how many vehicles actually had mechanical or electrical issues that
Looking at you, William Byron.
yeah, exactly. William Byron, Chris Buescher, Michael McDowell, like, and then I think at one point AJ Allmendinger was complaining about his throttle or something too, and then Kyle Larson too was talking about issues. So yeah, it was just there was a lot of weird gremlins going on at the track, and completely side noted here, having gone to the race now, the energy around the track and just the whole setup itself is incredible. It's probably obviously I'm very partial to going to Las Vegas just because it's kind of a home race and I like the
Mhm.
setup and all that, but that was one of the most enjoyable, if not the most enjoyable NASCAR events I've been to since I've started doing this.
Well, it seems like they've kind of figured out how to thread the line of like making it interesting because they have so many corporate partners, but actually making it accessible for fans too.
And
Like,
they made uh us in the media, like we got to do a quick little like track tour on Friday, and
yeah,
we got to hear the logistics of how they've cut 18 days off of prep and tear down time from the first
yeah,
year in here, and how they opened up. They said like almost double the amount of general access viewing areas for the track in the 3 years. So they've made a lot of strides to make this better for the community. They listened to community leaders and just residents as to what
yeah,
they wanted for the race. And they had Michigan Avenue back rolling completely the morning after the race ended.
yeah. Well, and it's even like they try to lean into the F1 stuff a little too hard in year one, and I think the
Yeah.
more they've realized that just it's not what people are looking for. Yeah, I mean, a lot of obviously, like Denny was talking about how so much of his sponsors are tied to that area, and they want to bring people out and make a whole thing out of it, and they can still do that without really impacting what all the fans to see. And as you mentioned, the ease of setup and teardown will make Chicago a lot more interested in keeping this thing rolling and keeping the race going because the fans seem to enjoy it, the drivers seem to be pretty fond of it, and gets them that market which they don't really have a ton.
Yep.
Obviously Chicagoland doesn't really run anymore, so kind of interesting. Any other big takeaways before we drive into how our DraftKings and our betting and all that stuff went?
Yeah, I still love Carson Hocevar, although he made the biggest boneheaded move of the weekend and caused a, you know, massive pile up on the freeway or highway, whatever you call it in your region there early, taking out one of my favorite like longer shot guys, Will Brown, who I was very sad we didn't get to see him run the entire race. But
Yeah,
outside of that, the race was great. It's cool to see somebody just absolutely dominate at a track because it makes it more fun leading into a race weekend with knowing, okay, who is going to have a chance here? Is anyone going to have a chance? And how is it going to happen?
yeah. So we can talk about some of our lineups. Obviously, Byron having an issue basically on the first lap and being done was
Yeah.
frustrating. As you mentioned with Will Brown, he was in that first accident. Then we got Cole Custer in some accidents later. Like it was not fun. And then Chase Elliott was fine. Obviously finished 16th. I don't know. Did
Yeah.
you
He
ever
kind of
felt
checked out like mid race to where he was just
yeah,
running.
it didn't feel like he was the same guy we saw in Mexico really make
No.
strides.
Yeah.
Um Next one, Austin Hill. Austin Hill was a breath of fresh air, finished in the top
He had a
10.
great weekend too. I mean, came home
Amazing
third in
weekend. Yep.
Xfinity.
Mm-hmm. Shouts to Austin, or fourth, I think, because
Oh,
he didn't cash the top three, but I did find him in a group, so I ended up doing that instead and better number and cash that
that's right.
baby. But I gave it all back on Sunday, so that's the beautiful thing about NASCAR. Bubba was having a great day until his shenanigans with Alex Bowman. Um, I'd be really curious to hear both those guys' perspective this week from the media center. I'm sure they're going to get lots of questions about that.
Yeah.
And I really do want to find out, like, were they thinking about the in-season challenge at all? Were they just annoyed that they were bumping and banging into each other? Were they trying to get best? Like, Bubba was trying to hold on for dear life, and Bowman obviously had better tires. So I don't know. It was kind of interesting. Did they have any? Did you hear any comments afterwards, or were you able to talk
So
back to those
it's
guys?
it sounded like they had interviewed Bowman on pit road. I was not out there because it was too damn humid for I had sweated, like I lost like 10 pounds of sweat on Saturday and Sunday. But uh Bowman said he wasn't thinking about the in-season tournament at that time. He was just trying to maximize his results. While it kind of seemed like Wallace has been kind of leaning into this thing. And so that's probably what he was battling for. And the two just kind of they started going after it, and you saw it on TV. It was tit for tat. And they got what they deserved. One of them was gonna wreck at some
Yeah.
point doing
I
that.
mean, they were beating and banging for about half the track.
Yeah.
At some point, the luck was gonna run out. Let's go. Let's give a little shout out to the Legatron, Catherine Legg, finished in the top 20, less than
Mind you,
2%.
this is after I put the ultimate hex on her when I tweeted, "Don't look now, she's running 24th or 25th." As
Yeah,
soon as I hit send on the X machine was when she hit the wall and spun out. And
yeah,
so I thought for sure I cooked her day, but man, she recovered and still came home inside the top 20, which is incredible.
yeah. Imagine if we didn't have Will Brown and Will Byron in there. It's got the Wills out of there, and
Yeah.
would have brought back my will to live. Chase Elliott, though, I do want to give him a little credit as since he started 39th, even though he only finished 16th. Still a good day on DK, and that's why we and I assumed Byron would be in a very similar boat.
Yeah.
Um,
Imagine a world though where Denny Hamlin, who actually started further back, who started basically beside Chase Elliott, essentially finished 12 spots ahead of the former road course king in the
yeah,
sport.
I did build a cash lineup on the Sunday, I guess it would have been, and it was awesome. I mean, it still had Byron, but it had Denny, who was great. It had Chase, who was fine. It had SVG, who was ended up being the guy. Bubba and Ty Dillon. But like 249.30 basically cashes on all the tournaments, but gets you very minimal cash.
Yeah, but
Um,
I mean that's
so you take Bubba out, you put the leg in, and then you take Byron out and you put someone else in, then you're looking pretty. But yeah, let's talk betting. All that goodwill I built up last week with um Chase Elliott winning, gave a lot of it back this week. But I guess I want to pick your brain because I was looking obviously based on results and stuff. Toyota 234. Were Reddick or Gibbs or Denny ever really contenders?
so Denny had no shot.
Yeah.
So there, in my opinion, the only guys that had a shot to steal a win were Reddick, Briscoe, and Wallace based on speed when they jumped on the let's try to extend our fuel tank strategy. Um, because when you look at a road course, like you need to have speed, and that's something that Denny doesn't really have at
Yeah.
these tracks. And Briscoe at least showed it up front for a little while he was leading. Wallace had moved through the field, actually
Yeah,
making passes.
I
And
grabbed
then,
Bubba at 250 to 1 live thinking he could actually do something. And for a little while there, I was like, oh, that's kind of smart. But it's like, but you don't win for getting seventh place. So you have to actually win the race. And
but I mean,
um,
had it played out the way that they wanted, and we didn't get that extra caution,
mm,
they might have been the only guys that would have been up front because
yeah,
they would have been good on fuel while everybody else would have still had to have pit one more
yeah,
time. So, something goes your way. If you're holding 251, you're happy. I actually bet him live. I think it was at 65 when they jumped on that strategy. Mind you, this isn't on the show card because obviously that number was cooked but when we recorded, but I
yeah,
also had even as the race winner. So I had coverage on SVG. So,
Nice.
I was looking at ways to hedge to potentially win big while
Yeah.
still looking good with the front two guys of Shane and Gibbs at the time.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out if it was good process, bad result, or if it was bad process jumping on Toyota. Because the more I looked at it Saturday night and was up thinking about my card, I was like, do I honestly think Chase Briscoe's gonna win? No, I don't think he has any shot. But he's starting up front, and there was points in the race where like I thought maybe he had a shot. Obviously, I didn't add Reddick. I just did Bell and Gibbs. So I had Reddick. I could add, Denny, Bubba. Like, did I think they could really win? Probably not. But I felt like there's enough of those kind of guys where if something wonky happened, because I feel like I guess like in a world where everything just runs smoothly, Shane probably wins just like he did. And that the year that things go wonky is the year Bowman won. So
Yeah.
is it good process thinking, well, here's all the ways I could win if things get a little weird? Or should I be like, that's stupid. Why am I betting on like this random outlier outcome when most of the time, and it's not like I'm getting like 12-1 on it, I'm getting plus 240. I don't know. I'm just trying to think through that and process and going forward. Like, is that a bet I should have made, or is that a dumb bet given what we saw with the cars really kind of trending to try and take the lead?
I mean, it won't show it on the card here because obviously I've had shit luck for show purposes, but I think my biggest takeaway from watching Chicago is going forward at road courses. I'm not betting anybody that is not 16, 15 to 1 or longer just because Shane Van Gisbergen is so much better than everybody else on this track type. And I don't think it's relatively close. And
Yeah,
so you need to have a large number, even if you're covering an entire manufacturer, even at like looking back, like at the Toyota plus 240, it looked good at the time because Bell and Gibbs and Reddick looked really good. But in hindsight, it, all things equal, nobody is touching the 88 right now.
yeah. Well, let's use
So
that as a jumping off point before we transition to Sonoma. So any other big Chicago takeaways? Anyone that really impressed you? Obviously, you had Briscoe on the card at 35. You had Gibbs at 12. You had the Will Brown top 10. I would have liked to see
that
him have
pissed
a
me off,
chance to
man.
get there. I'm still up over 18 units. You're down, obviously, but a long way to go. Ping ponging around this season, but I guess, do you have any big Chicago takeaways before we look at Sonoma odds and kind of talk through that in terms of SVG being the favorite? Is it, are we going to be like, this is Mexico and this is Chicago, or are we going to think differently? But I guess before we do that, anything big takeaway wise, anything Chicago wise that you really want to make sure we hit on before we move forward?
Yeah, Michael McDowell was not blowing smoke up our ass after Mexico City when he was saying that he's getting more comfortable in his car. He said it in the post qualifying press conference that he's just getting a better feel for the Chevrolet team with Spire. I get same thing is happening to Chase Briscoe as he's getting better as the season has progressed. And the Michael McDowell in the latter stages of his front row career where he was weak at road courses, opening up as a 10 to 12 to 1 guy because we just anticipated him running well, has returned. And so you'll see that as we transition, we look at the odds here at Sonoma, one of his better road courses. Like, he is being priced as a favorite. And if you had a market of to win excluding Shane Van Gisbergen, he's probably the favorite. Like, I would probably play him over anybody else and right now.
Yeah. So let's jump into that market. So Shane Van Gisbergen plus 140. Absurd.
It's stupid, man.
The question is,
No.
well, I know you're not going to bet it, but like in terms of the way we should think about it, do you think
Yeah.
it's more in line with Mexico and with Chicago, where he should be a massive favorite and priced kind of around here? Or do you think Coda, the Glen, Sonoma should be thought of differently? And especially Sonoma, as we think about this week, like, are we just wasting our time and our money betting outrights against Shane Van Gisbergen for the most part, unless we get an amazing number and then it shrinks and then still have to hope and pray that it actually comes home? Or do you think this is market overcorrection after watching him kick the shit out of cars for Mexico and for Chicago, and that actually we're getting good numbers? Because that's what I tried to convince myself last week. Obviously, didn't work out. But is Sonoma different? Or is he going to figure out Sonoma the way he's figured out everything else, and maybe obviously doesn't have as big of an advantage, but still has a tremendous advantage in betting other drivers against him is kind of a fool's errand.
The only thing that's working in your advantage if you're betting against Shane this week is the fact that this is the first time he's going to be racing at Sonoma in the Cup car.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only thing that you can look at as a positive when playing non-SVG drivers. Albeit he almost won his first Cup race at Watkins Glen too. Also a pretty technical type of race course that is not similar to the street courses of Chicago or Mexico City. So the books are just protecting themselves from the post qualifying situation that they had this last week where he opened up at like plus 250. Still too short for my liking. But I mean, put it on pole. He was the best again. Like he was the favorite. I thought he was actually going to fire off at like even post qualifying, to be honest with you.
I think he kind of did, and I think it just came back a little bit.
Yeah, he kind of floated a little bit just because that's absurd. This is a Cup Series, man. Like anything, it almost happened there at the end. Had they thrown the caution,
he could be the best car and he could be on the wrong strategy and get trapped. He could lose a tire.
Yeah.
His tire changer could not put the nut on all the way. He could run out of gas. He could run into Bubba Wallace or Ricky Stenhouse or Carson Hocevar. What if his race got ended right in the first lap and everything was up in the air after that?
So the one thing that I made sure to ask Tyler Reddick about this in the post-race presser, had the caution not come out and Tyler had gotten to Shane, what was he willing to do to win the race? The biggest takeaway was when Tyler said at the end of it, we all saw what Shane is willing to do to win races on Saturday. So I think the Cup Series is now fully aware, like the gloves are off when you're battling Van Gisbergen for a win here in the Cup Series, because he's done it now numerous times where he has now adapted to the NASCAR style of racing of elbows out, like anything goes when you're going for a win. So I don't think Cup drivers are going to be giving him any leeway anymore. And Sonoma, unlike Chicago, the restart zone is not a spot where the leader has such a massive advantage because it's essentially immediately coming out of a corner. This is more on a straightaway going into a corner. So he's going to get doored this week if the situation arises. And so I do think this week is a much better opportunity for guys. And so, you can kind of shop but you need long numbers. Again, I'm going to reiterate, I'm not playing anybody in that 10 to 1 or shorter range really at the moment against Shane.
Okay. I like where your head's at. And I think, given how dominant he's shown the ability to be, like drivers are going to, if they see an opportunity, even if it's small, I think they might be a little more willing, especially a Mick Driver, Ross, guys that. And so you're honestly hoping that your driver is not actually racing him. They're like a couple cars behind and that someone else takes him out and then your guy goes around.
Yeah.
So if you are betting somebody else not named SVG to win, let's figure out who that could be. Kyle Larson. I have the odds up over here. You can get as long as 6-1. Caesars has 5. McDriver is 950, as you mentioned, priced among the favorites, if not right there. BetMGM still has them at 11. FanDuel and actually DraftKings has 11, and there's some FanDuel has 10. So you can get double digits, but man, that feels gross. Chase Elliott Ty Gibbs, Chris Buescher, Tyler Reddick. A lot of books are just kind of putting all these guys at like 12 and
Yeah.
saying, I don't know, you guys figure it out. And then William Byron is the last name you get before it goes to 20. Is there anyone in there that is extra compelling for you?
Well, so to open the week, the first name that I was shopping was Michael McDowell, and that number has been cut in half
Yeah.
since he opened at 18, and that number has been destroyed. I liked it down to like 15 or 16, like I said, as the show's opening. I'm not playing him at plus 950 because that's essentially what you got or nearabouts post qualifying when he sat on the front row here in Chicago. So, I think he's a wait and see at this point. And I'm definitely not playing Kyle Larson, despite him winning last year. He is in like a full hibernation mode at the moment.
Well, and it's interesting too because, and we were talking a little bit before, but like even last week after practice and qualifying, where McDowell looked like a legitimate contender, he was only 850. So like
Yeah,
betting him
exactly.
at 950 and not seeing it, and then he, even if he crushes it, what is he going to be, like 7 or 8 at the most? Like,
Well, and then like you also have to account for when you see Shane open up at plus 140, plus 150. I think he's plus 160 at DK right now, maybe. The books are already pricing this, assuming we're going to see a similar situation from practice and qualifying. So
yeah.
you don't have to rush to bet these guys at the top. I think where you're shopping now are the mid to, low range long shot guys, just to have some flyers in case we get some wonkiness.
So you can get a 16 on Gibbs, you can get a 14 on Reddick, 14 on Buescher, 18 on Byron. Any interest?
I honestly, I don't hate Reddick at 14. I think that's probably a little bit too long. Um, he was really good here last year. He's been fast at Sonoma. He just doesn't have the results to, back that up. And then again in Chicago, like he said it, this is the third straight year they've had a tire advantage because they've been really aggressive at Chicago, especially. And he wasn't able to get it done. He's still without a win. So that's starting to play a factor into their strategy. I don't hate the 14, but again, I'm kind of shied away from playing any of these guys just simply because of how good Van Gisbergen is.
All right, well, let's talk about the next range to see if there's any interest there. Christopher Bell, there's 20 at Caesars. There's 22 at FanDuel. Dinger, same thing, 2022. Then you're talking Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman, all the way up to 35. You can get a 27 on Kyle Busch. You can get a 30 on Ross. You can get 35 on Blaney. You can get a 40 on Alex Bowman. Do any of those numbers tickle your fancy?
I know that there was a lot of steam early on Kyle Busch and Chastain, and I do think of the guys in this range, they're probably the two most likely to be aggressive and maybe surprise up near the front. But Chastain, I don't know. I just don't really trust him this year. And then until Kyle Busch wins, I have a hard time like betting him to actually win a race. I like him more in the placement markets
Yeah,
this
like
week.
I think both Chastain and Ross are the same person, of course. KFB and Ross, Chastain
Yeah.
and Kyle are very interesting in top 5 as top 10s. Like
Yes.
375 for a top 5, 4 for a top 5, I think is interesting. My question, so Dinger at 22 is the one that's going on the card. As you mentioned, if someone needs to beat Shane Van Gisbergen, I need someone who's a extremely good road racer. I think, there's shorter numbers in some places. I got 25 personally, but I think 20 or north is fine because I could see him come out look really good, and he's like 14 or 12. And he's been really good here at Sonoma. Um, and I'm willing to take that shot given what we've seen and given his potential upside.
Yeah, I don't hate that because as you were saying, he kind of falls into that category of somebody that needs a win.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen him be good at road courses, although he hasn't won in ages. But But the number is good, so I don't mind hitting that. I am going to make an ad simply because I did play this at only $2 more personally, but that's going to be Chris Buescher at 14. 365 in FanDuel right now. I have it at 16. I'd prefer it to be 15, but for show purposes, I'll take the 14 and be happy with it because in the same breath as Allmendinger, Buescher also needs a win just because there's no guarantee that points are going to be enough as the races wind down at the end of the regular season. So and I think for Buescher's sake too, we've seen him battle SVG and come out victorious. So of anybody in the series, he's the only one that's really had a front of the field battle at the end and get the better of the current best road course racer in the sport.
Yeah. I think he's pretty interesting. It makes me queasy thinking about betting him at 12 or 14 when Shane is plus 140. But
the only thing that we've played this, I have played this game a lot with Van Gisbergen in the past, but even if he has to start in the back, he's probably going to reopen at 2.25. I just don't see his number floating past 2.5 or 3 at the longest at this point.
My question to you is Shane Van Gisbergen starts in the back of the pack, whatever last is, or Connor Zilic starts in the back of the pack in Xfinity, whatever that is. Who would you rather max bet to win the race?
Oh, Zilic in Xfinity for sure. Yeah. He has far less competition because I mean, yeah, the guys in the back in the Cup are not great on road courses, but
no, but like Logano could make it hard for
exactly.
him. Stenhouse could wreck him. Justin Haley could do dumb stuff. I don't know.
Mind you, I would rather bet Connor Zilic this week than Shane in Xfinity. I do think that Zilic on the same tires is probably the closest to Shane. Maybe even if in Xfinity or Cup.
Plus 140.
I mean, the books are essentially pricing it as it's 100% probability that it's one of them winning.
What about 5-1 on both of them to win?
Yeah, I thought about doing that in Chicago last week, but of course that wouldn't have hit. But yeah, I don't hate that. I could see another SVG double occurring here.
Yeah. You want to get frisky with Brisky? The 19's been good to us at Sonoma.
But Briscoe hasn't been good at Sonoma.
No, but he's been much better in the 19. He's been much better on road courses. I don't know. I'm just trying to see. Like, Suarez at 55, he's literally won here.
Yeah, no. So now that the official word has come out that Suarez is not returning to Trackhouse, I think it's fair to assume that within the next week or two, information is going to start getting withheld. The team is going to start taking resources and putting it towards the other two guys that are in the playoffs. Like, we've seen this before when guys are leaving a team or they make an announcement that they're going to another team at the end of the season. It happened to Michael McDowell last year with Front Row Motorsports.
Yep. Eric
and
Jones.
He was like the king for that team.
Yeah. There's no way Zilic is in the Cup car before the end of the year, right?
No, I don't think they would do that. But
okay. I'm wondering where Suarez goes. If you guys have thoughts on where Suarez ends up, drop them down in the comments. So is there any flyers that you want to get on board with now that when we're talking Saturday night seem real good? Even though we're betting on jabronis. I guess let's say this.
There is nobody in when you look at road courses, who wins road courses? Tyler Reddick, Shane Van Gisbergen, Chris Buescher. That's it.
So is
William
Dinger
Byron,
Bell like
Kyle
the
Larson.
end of the line in terms of guys that we think can actually win this?
Well, I mean, they're priced where they should be. Like the books are definitely getting a little bit sharper, especially at road courses
Yeah.
for numbers because even like a Bowman, for instance, he was only a play because he had won at Chicago before and he had run really well there. He's not that level of good here at Sonoma, so I wouldn't touch the same number at
Yeah.
Sonoma that I did in Chicago. I like him for a top 10 this week. I think that there's definitely value there, but I don't think winning, he needs everything to go right for him to win this race. Whereas like, you know, Busher, he's got three straight top fives in the Gen 7 era here at Sonoma. Like this is a track he loves. Michael McDowell, this is probably his favorite road course on the schedule. So like they are priced accordingly. And Kyle Larson won the race last year.
So if that's the case, should we just be looking at like top fives and trying to hammer some of those and not worrying about betting outrights because it's a waste of time and likely a waste of money?
Yeah, I definitely think the value is in the top 5 and top 10 markets this
Okay.
week, to like especially just looking at the early odds because Van Gisbergen is eating a ton of he's like a minus 1,000 to top 10, which yeah, if everything goes right, he's going to top 10. But I mean, shit, if William Byron could have an issue on the first lap of the race, why can't Shane Van Gisbergen?
Very fair. So Chris Buescher plus 225 to top 5. Is that going on the card for both of us?
I mean, I like the number better at our favorite offshore or former favorite offshore.
Well, my favorite offshore, not your favorite offshore.
Yeah, screw them.
Um,
Yeah, if that's the best number we can get, then yeah, I'll
Kinda
put
looks
that on
like it, but we can look around. I'm just looking at what Action Network has
there.
listed.
Plus 250 at 365.
Reverse or 365. All right. Okay. Well, that will go on the card for both of us.
Yeah.
Dinger 325. Kyle Busch 375. Ross 4-1. Bowman 6-1. Any of those tickling your fancy?
Not so much Bowman. So
Top 10.
yeah, the Bowman is the top 10 because you can get 2-1 pretty much across the board.
Okay.
And that number's crazy. Albeit he's never top 10 here in the Gen 7, and he only has 2 top 10s since joining Hendrick, but that's 33% hit rate.
So I
But the
guess
guy has
what's the number that you're willing to go down to? Like, would you bet 175? Would you bet?
yeah, I think even like plus 150
Okay.
or plus, yeah, I think plus 150 is good enough on Bowman for a top 10 simply because the guy is so solid at road courses. He's got the 6th or 7th best average finish in the Gen 7 era at all road courses. He's top 10 in almost half of them and half of the 19 that we've run in this new car. So you're going to tell me you're going to give me that at, $1.50 or $1.75. Yeah, I'll take that every time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Buescher top 5. I think Bowman top 10. Trying to convince myself that Ross Chastain to top 10 is a smart bet at plus money.
Again, so Chastain and Busch top 10s at like plus 110 or above, I think are definitely in play.
Yeah. Like 7th, 10th, 5th, last 4.
Yeah. And Chastain has been sneakily getting good finishes of late, and he's been quiet on the track.
So rank these in terms of confidence level for me for a top 10 finish. Ross, KFB, Alex Bowman. I mean, Dinger's right in that range. Let's do those 4. Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, AJ Allmendinger, and who was the other one I said?
And Bowman.
And you
Personally,
could do it just straight up, or you could do it based on odds.
Yeah, no. Personally, I'm going to take Bowman just simply because he's Hendrick, and Sonoma seems to be a track that Hendrick is really good at. Because when you especially if you go back to last year, 3 of the 4 cars were running in the top 6 early on in that race, just based on speed. So they're going to come with fast cars, just like last week in Chicago, where Byron and Elliott looked like 2 of the fastest cars on track until they had issues in practice. So I like Bowman. probably take Busch right now, just because he's been pretty good at the road courses. Sonoma is really good. I was really good at Coda earlier this year. Obviously, he's coming off Chicago race where he just kind of hung around all day in the same spot. And then I'd probably take Dinger and then Ross.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I think, man. So I guess,
Chastain scares me because of his aggressiveness.
yeah. What do you think about Dinger's aggressiveness? Do you think he's because he needs a win, but he's in a good spot and he's in a full-time ride? Like, I'm trying to debate like how like is he checkers or wreckers, or is he a little more reliable in terms of top 5, top 10? And would you rather just bet top 5 knowing you get the payout? That way if he doesn't top 5, maybe he's had a bad day or something. Like where are you at with him?
Yeah, Dinger's in a precarious situation because he's kind of he's like the second to last guy in the playoffs at the moment. And so he kind of needs to like just point hunt right now in case we don't get any new winners. And the only reason why he would be going for a win and surrendering that type of stuff and getting that aggressive would be if he's running up front.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't see him putting himself in a spot where he's taking a corner 3 wide and there's a chance that he's going to get wrecked. As opposed to Ross Chastain, I'm not quite sure that's been beaten out of his DNA yet, where regardless of whether or not he's trying to improve his spot in the playoff standings or not, like, I just think he does it. That's just his MO.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to me that Ryan Blaney, as much as I love him, on road courses, an improving driver, is priced longer or much shorter than Alex Bowman.
Yeah, look, Blaney is fast, but yeah, I would much rather have Bowman.
Yeah.
I think they're being priced that way because Penske showed up with speed in practice and qualifying last year here.
Yeah.
On what was essentially a new track because of the repave, mind you. So we've had a full summer and winter in Sonoma, which, contrary to what I saw Chase Elliott say in an interview on the X Machine today, the weather is pretty drastic between the two extremes in any inland part of California. It's cold in the winter and it's hotter than the devil's ass in the summer. Like,
yeah, like as someone who, I guess in theory this would be my home track, it's less than 2 hours away, can promise you that the vast majority of the years it's triple digits, it's miserably hot, and you sit in the sun and bake all day if you're not in the media center or in a hospitality tent or something like that.
Yeah.
So it will be baking. It actually looks like we're going to get decent weather, at least.
Yeah, it looks like it's like low 80s.
Which is pretty impressive. Like the Northern California cool down is upon us. So it's been pretty glorious. But yeah, traditionally, like every like 3 to 4 years, it's like 75 and like beautiful. But most of the time it's like 104 and you're miserable. And then to your point, it's right in like north of San Francisco, like North Bay area, and then the track. It can get cold, not like Chicago or
Yeah,
Midwest,
exactly.
but it gets cold, especially for us California boys. But yeah, so I'll be interested to see kind of how the track reacts. Is there any other you want to look at some match bets? You want to look at manufacturer? Is there any qualifying?
So I want to look at the manufacturer bets primarily for the Chevy numbers, because I do think this is a spot where you can get similar prices. Like, okay, Alex Bowman, for instance, why play him at 35-1 to win the race when you can get him at 25-1 to top Chevy, which allows for, say, Tyler Reddick, Chris Buescher, Ty Gibbs, Chris Bell. Like, it allows for a bunch of other really skilled road course racers and other manufacturers to finish ahead of him, and you still get a massive number on a guy that is capable of running near the front that doesn't have to get the checkered flag.
Yeah, I think it makes more sense on a Bowman, on a KFB, a guy that you think isn't quite there, maybe more of a top 3 finisher. I think with Dinger, I think I want the full 20 something,
Yes. Yeah.
or even just 20 instead of 15. But yeah, I like where your head's at. No legs for you this week.
Not at 500, no. That would
Busher
have
at
to be like
minus money
$1,000,000
is
to 1.
wild. Is Busher at minus 105 to be the top 4 actually like a value?
That's incredible.
Like there's some even out there.
Look, I don't mind playing the Gilly Gang at 20. I mean, we got to see what paint scheme he's running this week because he had the GOAT paint scheme last week with the hot and spicy Grillo's pickles. So, and that didn't do him so well.
Do we dare Cole Custer ourselves again?
No, we got to see these guys on track. I do think that they're priced expecting Penske to be fast again here at Sonoma in qualifying, and so
Which is
now
why I'm like, is there potential value here with Gill and
I think you could play both the other RFK guys and be happy at
Grease.
10 and 14.
Yeah.
Not that Brad is good at road courses, but
no. Top Toyota, anything interesting? Bubba 30.
man, if Bubba's top Toyota, well,
Because Shane could win by 14 seconds, and then Bubba's like third, and it's like
Bubba could.
Like, if it was Shane,
realistically-
Busher, and then Bubba, would it be like shocking? No.
Yeah, but realistically, though, assuming Hendrick shows up as fast as they have here, Shane still kicks the shit out of the field. Michael McDowell is still up front. You could probably get a top 5 that's all Chevy, or a top 5 that's 4 Chevys and Busher, and then maybe Bubba finishes 6th or 7th. Like realistic, the top Toyota could almost finish outside the top 5 here.
No. Dinger over Bell.
Yeah, I can tell you first, there's not a lot of matchups I've seen that are enticing right now.
Bowman over Blaney, minus 105.
Yeah, I don't hate that actually.
Chastain plus 100 over KFB is kind of fun.
Those
guys are basically the same guy to me.
I was just gonna say they've bitten me in the ass here at Sonoma in particular too.
This is where we had so much fun because you had KFB over Ross, and I had Ross over KFB, and Ross put it in KFB's bumper.
Yes, and I was like, I was flipping out at the end of the race.
bad.
Yeah,
I hope we get to see that person.
and then he ran out of fuel, and he didn't even cash my friggin' top 10 either.
Oh yeah, I remember that. All right.
Yeah.
God, here we
I was
go.
losing my shit last year about that.
Oh, that was so much fun.
No, it wasn't.
I really want to go back through some of the all-time moments and put a little compilation together. If you guys have favorite moments from the show, please drop them in the comments. Maybe that can be an off-season project where I go grab some of our best moments and put a little compilation together, or of you losing your mind, or you old man rants, or who knows.
There's a lot of those from me.
Oh yeah. 100. Let's see.
Mind you, apparently it's the I'm the Better Business Bureau this week, so
I don't know what that means.
it's all B's, baby. Busher, Bush, Bowman. Yeah, Bowman top 10 at 2-1 is going on here.
Yeah, that seems good. McDowell over Elliott, minus 115.
I don't trust the car. I trust the driver, but I don't trust his car.
And even then, I don't know that I actually trust the driver. Is there value with Ty Dillon? Does he get another stage 1 victory?
I sure hope not, considering I'm sitting on Bowman 30-1 to win the in-season tournament. Although I don't hate playing the number. Nobody should be priced at over 2.
That's what I'm saying. Plus 215, that seems fine.
Yeah, and I think like
Priest
Zane
plus
Smith plus
175.
225 over Ty Gibbs.
Yeah, like all three of these seem fine.
Yeah, I remember I was watching the last year's race back today, and this is where Gibbs had like a flat or something early in the race.
Sounds about right. Let's see, anything else? Any other
Amazingly
driver?
enough, Zane Smith has a better average finish here at Sonoma than Ty Gibbs does in their 2 races.
Tempt me with a good time. Can I interest you in minus 160 for anyone not named SVG to win the race?
What? Probably not. That's like I would rather just cherry pick guys that I actually think can win.
Yeah. Oh, we should hit on this really quickly before we get out of here. Reddick almost 2-1, Bowman 275, Gibbs 280, and then it's a big drop off. If you didn't have any action or you had action on other drivers that are now out of it, are you considering Bowman, Reddick, Gibbs? Are you considering one of the longer shots going? This shit's been weird, man. Just give me Ty Dillon 18-1 and let's go win this thing.
Yeah, no, I think Alex Bowman is still the best value on the board simply because of the way that the path sets up for him to get to Indy. I mean, he's got a extremely favorable matchup this week against Ty Dillon. Although I'm waiting to hear what Ty Dillon's planned spiel is going to be this week if he beats Alex Bowman. But then after that, he goes to Dover, where Bowman is actually the best guy currently in the Cup Series against either John Hunter Nemechek or Eric Jones. He's going to be a massive favorite there.
You're basically
and then
getting.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say you're basically getting Bowman, in theory, in a head-to-head against whoever comes out of the other side at 2-1.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
3-1.
Because whether he's facing Reddick or Gibbs, it's going to be minus 115, minus 110 both ways. I think if it's Reddick versus Bowman, Reddick is probably the favorite, but it's probably in that like minus 125 to minus 105 range. So you could easily hedge off of Bowman with a Reddick, and he's probably the favorite against Gibbs at Indy.
If you can get Reddick at like 2-1 or better, is it worth taking a shot on, or do you want to see someone come out of there? Because we've seen wonky stuff. Priest could win, Gibbs could win, and then all of a sudden that 2-1 that like pseudo hedge. If you bet Bowman at say 25 or 23, 22 or 30 or whatever you got it at.
Yeah, I'd be a little bit worried with Reddick heading to Dover simply because I think that's the track where they've had brake issues in the past, and it's not a place that he's been fantastic at. So
yeah,
I have way less optimism towards Reddick with still 3 races to go towards the end of this thing than I do with Alex Bowman.
I think honestly taking Ty Dillon, Ryan Priest, and Zane Smith is the move. I think there's a real possibility you cash 2 of those.
Well, they can't. 2 of them can't win.
No. The head to head.
They advance. Yeah,
Because they're all like plus 155 or 2-1. So if you take all three of them, I think you cash at least 2 of those. I don't know which 2. It's going to be weird because it's been weird the whole way. Although
You're
maybe it's
our
like
luck.
maybe it's like March Madness where it's wonky in the beginning and then the best teams kind of just figure it out but it's I don't know, it's NASCAR.
Well, I
Wheels
mean,
fall off, pets' heads are falling off. It's crazy.
looking at Chicago realistically. Ty Dillon only advanced because like Brad Keselowski got caught in
Yeah,
somebody
no,
else's.
Ty Dillon has only advanced because Denny got injured, got wrecked in stage 1. Brad got wrecked in stage 1, and now Gibbs is going to wreck in stage 1.
Oh no,
I mean, that's how he's gotten through. And then he'll stand
dude!
up
If
there.
that happens, if Alex Bowman wrecks out early here and Ty Dillon beats him because of that, I'm probably I will bet Ty Dillon to win the tournament after that if that's the case.
I think you just bet him to beat Alex Bowman and then go from there. You can always roll it over. Okay, Brian, we're almost to an hour. It's late out here on the West Coast. I need to get this wrapped up and posted. Drop your comments. Let us know what you're thinking about this week. If you're going to be at the track, holler at your boys. We'd love to say hello. Let us know who's standing out, who we didn't talk about, what bets you guys like. As always, we will try and regroup, I guess, in the comments. We'll put extra bets if we have as they come alive, as we find stuff we like, all that good stuff. That is Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy the rest of your week. We will be boots on the ground from Sonoma. The content factory will be in production, and we will see you this weekend.